Hello, Marco.
How are you today?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
Great, thank you. It's nice to see you this afternoon on this cold day here in Ottawa, Canada. Are you
Yeah,
doing
I'm
well?
I'm doing really well. I'm looking forward to this. Two of my favorite things, spending time with one of my favorite people and talking about one of my favorite subjects here.
Oh, well, geez, I'll take that as a compliment. Well, welcome to everybody that's joining us today to the introductions of a new strategy and our new licensing model, Janice, which I'm really excited about to talk to all the MSPs that are joining us. I think we're really onto something right now as a company at Produce 8 in terms of developing a great strategy that's going to help MSPs differentiate themselves in the marketplace and deliver what we call digital work analytics to their customers that's going to bring a lot of value to them. So I think we can have a lot of fun this afternoon, and you and I were great at interacting in terms of really trying to see if we can bring a lot of value to MSPs and what I feel like when we talk about digital work analytics is so critical because as we'll see, it really is the next iteration in the MSP space and a new offering and a solution that MSPs need to start having the discussions with the customers. And so what we're going to talk today with everybody about is give you some information about who Produce 8 is, because we are a new company in the marketplace, but we have been making a lot of headway as we launched our new partner program in 2024. And there's a lot of MSPs that are not aware that we've launched this program, Janice. So I want to talk about that a little bit and why it's critical for MSPs, but also why it's critical for businesses and the problem that we feel that we're solving in today's marketplace. And we always talk internally here at Produce 8 that you love using our technology. And so we're going to have you do a live demo of Produce 8 and how you use it on a daily basis, but also how do we leverage this solution in our business on a daily basis to help us make the right types of decisions. And probably on top of all of this, I'm so excited to share with everybody, Janice, our new pricing strategy because I feel that as you have a new solution you're going to market with and a new strategy that MSPs are going to incorporate into their business, uh, I always love to talk about like a pricing model that really fits nicely into their managed services contracts, but also giving them an opportunity to drive new recurring revenue. So we'll talk about that today. How does that sound?
That sounds amazing. And Marco, as you go through the slides, do you mind if I ask a couple of questions along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I welcome those because I think it will help with the dialogue and it'll help us with kind of having a nice conversation.
Awesome.
So, for everybody that's new to Produce 8 or hearing about us for the first time, as I mentioned, we're a digital work analytics platform. And what does that mean? Like the idea of what our platform brings is it's a solution that helps you gives you information in terms of helping you make the right decisions on technology and people within your business. And so, Janice, that's a big type of common or strategy in terms of what that means. But ideally, our solution is going to give you the ability to be proactive on uncovering problems that are happening in a business. But also, we talk about it as our business is how do we give employees better work days? And some people will look at this as, is there a way that we can actually unlock and deliver more productivity as a business or understand what's impacting people? Or really kind of like, do we have happy staff? And so our technology and our solution will help in so many different areas within an organization.
Mhm.
And I really love this slide because one, it's actually quite beautiful, but two, when we take a look at businesses today, and we take a look back at the RMM space and managed service providers over the last number of years, early on in the days, you and I both, we started working at Enable some 20 years ago, right? By one of our founders of Produce 8, Mark Scott, who founded Enable Technologies. And in those early days, when we talked to MSPs and we were calling them, and we were talking about remote monitoring and management technologies,
Oh.
a lot of MSPs were saying, you know what, it's not something that we want to do. We're very comfortable in terms of rolling a truck out and stuff like that. And nowadays, you see MSPs, they never want to roll out a truck. Everything is done remotely. and they're leveraging technology to give them information in terms of what's going on in the IT side of the business. But one of the actually biggest pieces of the pie that's not happening right now in the MSP space is that they don't have any idea in terms of what's going on with the workforce and how technology is impacting employees. And so we like to say that a lot of businesses are flying blind. And then also the MSPs are not giving them the right information that these companies are looking for. And ideally, by going in and helping MSPs look at where the marketplace is going, we feel that MSPs are actually positioned extremely well to capitalize on digital work analytics. And so, I talked a little bit early on in terms of where the MSP space started. It really started a number of years ago as we started delivering recurring revenue and tying in RMM solutions into the monthly recurring revenue contracts. And then you start seeing the evolution of the whole entire MSP space, right? MSPs started getting into security and cloud applications. And then even some started migrating into cybersecurity, and all of these types of migrations of the business, I'll call them, really entailed that a lot of organizations and companies had to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in people, in resources, and they're actually very quite expensive to manage and take a look at. But I feel that when we take a look at the fact that in North America alone, there's probably 70,000 managed service providers, there's obviously a great market in terms of what these MSPs have actually created. The next piece that we actually feel that's so critical for MSPs to start looking into is digital work analytics. And this is where I say there's 75% of a business's spend is based on people, but yet MSPs are not focusing in on these areas. And so when we take a look at this, there's a huge problem right now that is not being addressed, not only through the QBRs or what the MSPs are actually bringing to their customers, but also when you think of the strategies of the VCIO and everything like that, a lot of the times they've really been focused on around the IT side of the business. And so what Produce 8 will actually help businesses do is there's a number of problems that we feel are taking place. It could be what are the applications on the network? And we know that it's really prevalent right now that SaaS-based solutions that help with applications, identification of those apps are profound within the MSP space. But what's really different about Produce 8 is, and Janice, you're going to show this in your demo, is what are the applications that we're actually using as a business, and what are those applications costing us? And can we make proper decisions as a business to understand, are there things that we can actually remove from our business in terms of cost savings? And when we think of shelfware in terms of the SaaS apps, it's prevalent through a lot of businesses right across the world today. And so you'll get that information with Produce 8, but we're actually dealing with a major problem that businesses are facing today. And then you take a look at shadow IT, the security risk around that, right? Like, how are MSPs providing that leverage and that information to organizations to bring them into the QBR to differentiate themselves in terms of how they have conversations with their customers? And so employee distraction, we talk about things like focus time, how much time employees are working, and really how people are actually feeling across the business is really kind of like the main pieces of what our solution and our technology brings to the table. And so if MSPs aren't having this conversation with their customer, who is at the end of the day? And my feeling is that there's so many different future of work consultants that are actually having conversations with MSP customers, and they're actually bringing solutions to those customers that the MSP is actually not making money on. And so the reason why we're developing the strategy for MSPs, Janice, is that it's really, really important to make sure that they have a new way of delivering value to their customers that makes a lot of sense in a very cost-effective way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I've got a question here for you on this
Sure.
slide. So, beyond providing the reports to the customers, what are the other benefits for the MSP to join this reseller program? What would you say to them today?
Yeah, like I think it's a great question because I said it a little bit before. Differentiating yourselves from every MSP that's out there is so critical, right? And so a lot of the times, if MSPs kind of take a look at the technology stack today, while they might be using different solutions and technologies, they're all competing and everybody looks pretty much the same. And we've heard it a lot of times in the marketplace that a lot of MSPs look very vanilla. And so a lot of the times they're typically competing on price, and customers don't leave an MSP typically for, maybe a missed ticket or not responding quickly enough. A lot of the times, and you and I were both in MSP before we joined Produce 8, a lot of the times customers leave because another MSP undercut them on price. And so by going in and differentiating themselves, not only from trying to provide the same value, but to go in and show something very different in terms of what they go bring into their customers. But what I love about our program, Janice, is that an MSP doesn't have to hire people. An MSP doesn't have to make significant investments in the hundreds of thousands of dollars in infrastructure. Our SaaS platform is so easy for them to go out, deploy, and generate new recurring revenue. And this is that other piece to your question is, what's the value? I always love going in and educating MSPs on how they can drive new recurring revenue through their business. And our platform actually gives them a great opportunity to do that because it's so unique and so different. And so when we launched this new Essential Insight strategy, it's not only a difference in terms of our pricing model that we'll talk about today, that going to market as that movement and what that sales process looks like, but it's also this executive summary report that I love. And we're going to show to everybody today in terms of what's the game changer around this executive summary report. Because if you compare it to some of the reports that MSPs provide today around Brightgauge or Tableau or anything, any of the reports that are in the normal MSP stack, I promise you, when somebody sees what we're going to do with this executive summary report, it's a game changer for the conversation, and it's really brings a ton of value in for the customers because it's information that they actually don't have today. Now, when we take a look at the MSP, I had it on an earlier slide of like why it's so critical for MSPs. If you saw like that stairway to heaven slide that we talked about, you saw that 75%. And that 75% is so critical for MSPs to understand because currently right now, the revenue that they're generating is really about 8% spend of a business. But the people is the biggest spend in the organization, yet nobody's paying enough attention in terms of the people. And a lot of organizations, whether any kind of business, think that it's enough to give an employee a job and a duty. But we feel, Janice, we look at this a little bit differently, where we say, hey, listen, how do we make sure that the people that we hire are content, that they feel that they're productive, that they go home at the end of the day, that they feel that they've done a great job? And that's really what Produce 8 will bring to the table. It goes beyond not just a report, but it gives you the analytics to help organizations make the right types of decision on things that they don't know about today.
Nice.
And so when we take a look at it, the dilemma that businesses face, and we've been saying this time and time again, the dilemma that businesses face is that workforce analytics is absolutely pretty much zero within most organizations. So we actually have this massive opportunity as a business, but also there's a massive opportunity for MSPs that they can go out and bring a solution like Produce 8 and get into the idea of talking about data and how does that tie into a business's productivity. And so by going in and understanding what this looks like, the MSPs actually have a much better talk track in terms of understanding what decisions can they make with the data. And we'll talk about that as we get into your demonstration, Janice, in terms of what that looks like.
Yeah, one thing I want to comment here on these slides, Marco, is taking us back, putting back in our journey when we were both together at Fully Managed. We know that we lost customers because we were not able to provide them data beyond IT. I mean, boy, if we had had this solution back then, what a game changer that would have been for our business and customers, creating that value add and that stickiness. This is such a no-brainer.
Yeah, like I think like it's a thing that used to drive us nuts because as a managed service provider, you only found out a lot of times customers would cancel with you at the last minute, or
Yeah.
and it was too late before you can really kind of go in and work with them. I know, and you've seen it across all social media platforms, especially a lot of things on LinkedIn. Organizations are struggling in terms of delivering proper QBRs to the customers, and I think businesses are completely exhausted in terms of sitting down and having the same conversation every month or on a quarterly basis with their MSP about, the same things that they talk about at every QBR. And those QBRs are being canceled. And then that's where the disconnect between the MSP and the customer starts happening. When you can go in as an MSP and start having proper discussions with that organization about what's happening with their people and the problems and the things that are impacting them and changing the conversation, you reinvigorate that relationship that you have with your customer. And I think when we had our MSP, if we would have had something like this, like Produce Date at that time, it would not only help with ensuring that our retention rates remain high, but we definitely could have leveraged a solution like Produce 8 as a new customer acquisition strategy. I know that our sales team would have done a phenomenal job by even organizations that weren't prepared to move over their managed services practice, but I can get my foot into the door with a solution like Produce 8 and differentiate myself in terms of how I go to market. And so our new executive summary report is so critical in terms of what it looks like and the value that it brings. And it's gonna be really interesting because as we show people how we use the technology, we're going to show them how quickly it can happen in terms of generating that report. But there's four major areas that we actually take a look at when we take a look at digital work analytics reporting. We talk about work-life reporting, so quality of work life in terms of what does that mean? How are employees, whether it's focus time or whether it's employee distraction or sentiment. You start looking at collaboration time in terms of how often, organized people and teams might be in meetings and the times associated with those meetings. And it doesn't necessarily mean that all meetings are bad. But for instance, I was having a great conversation with a CRO the other day of a large organization where he was saying, hey, listen, how do I know what my team might be doing in Australia and the US? And maybe some organizations might be in some meetings and some organizations and not, but maybe there's a correlation about revenue. So again, it's information and data that they don't actually have today, but that with Produce 8, they're actually start getting that information. App discovery, I think people are going to be really interested in seeing what you have to show us there. And then kind of team organization, analytics reporting. Does that make sense?
That's amazing, Marco. Let's do it. So I am going to, I think you have to stop sharing maybe.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing my computer and then you can take us into Produce 8.
Okay, so just give me a second here. I'm going to get us in. Okay, so can you see that okay on
Yeah,
your end, Marco?
absolutely. Looks great.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to minimize you for a second so I get you up in the corner. But so right now, everybody, we are in this is not a demo environment. I'm pretty wild that way. I'm happy with sharing my live instance of the product. And the product for me is an absolute norm. So I leverage this day in, day out for both myself, our departments, and our organization. But today we're gonna right now really zone in on this amazing executive summary report that we now have at the click of a fingertip. So let's get started. So right here, I'm going to click on Get Your Executive Summary. And we're right at the end of January. So I figured that we would take a stroll through the January data. And the great thing about this is that this is live and it's always ongoing. So you can go in here at any point in time, pick the time that you want to look. So you saw all the months there. I can go back, I can go forth, I can create right up here. There's a downloadable PDF. I can send that out. This becomes a very strategic tool at your leadership meetings, at your conversations with your customers. You're really taking yourself out of that IT box into the business critical strategic decisions that they need to make. And in my opinion, in doing so, you look like an absolute rock star.
Hey,
So
Janice, one of the new features that we have is we actually have white labeling now. So MSPs can actually white label the dashboard and then even these reports as they go out to their customers. So again, a great way to show value to your customers in terms of what you're bringing to them. So it looks great.
Absolutely. So let's go down here and take a look at the month of January. So you see here, we're going to talk about, as Marco was highlighting, the 4 pillars. We're going to talk about the quality of the work life. So this is giving us at the org level view. So again, this is all the aggregated data for the organization. And so we can see the average working hours per person per day, and then it breaks it down into categories for you so you can see the various amounts of times. You then get what's called an average focus score, scheduled focus time, and that really means time that people are blocking off to focus on their deep work, and then their average digital intensity. And the way I like to explain this is your average focus score is your ability to be able, Janice is working on a task and I'm not getting pings and messages and I'm bouncing all over the place. So I'm context switching. How much time in the day can I focus on what I'm doing? And the higher you're getting towards the 100, then the more focused you've been in. And it's going to depend on your role. And what will happen over time, a really key point here is that you're going to develop standardized baselines. So my baseline for Janice would be much different than probably Marco's baseline for Marco because we're in different roles. But what happens over time is you're going to very clearly understand the baseline for your organization. And then as you go forth and you're going to make changes, that lever is going to go up and down, but that's going to keep you grounded on where you're at there. Now, this average sentiment per day, what we do here is when we log in the morning, we start off with the product. So I start my day, I go into the product and it asks me, Janice, how are you feeling about the day ahead? I do an actual check-in with myself. I'm like, okay, sleep was good, workout's done, breakfast done. I'm in the zone now. So I'll put that in. If I did have a bad sleep, I need to be brutally honest and put that in. Because what's going to happen now is I'm going to go about my day and I'm going to just go through the day. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be prompted. Hey, Janice, how are you now feeling at the end of the day? And I stop myself. I do a physical check-in. Oh, you know what? I'm still feeling good. Or, oh my God, I'm so swamped today. What happened in my day? Oh my gosh, Marco had me in 5 meetings today. Like he really drained me. And so it's going to affect you there. So from the quality of work life, it really gives you a lens into what's happening. What do you think about that, Marco?
I love that. But when you take a look at it, so we talk, there's different ways that you can obviously leverage our platform, right? You can use it personally, but this is what we call organization analytics. And when you kind of take a look at this from the eyes of a president in an organization, how do you look at this? Do you kind of go into it and really I should say, look at it as a micro level to try and see what are all the changes happening, or is it a high level information that helps you be proactive so that you can have a pulse on the business? Would that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is absolutely that, Paul. So a common indicator in the industry for team members is your employee net promoter score, but that's happening at a point in time. That time's already passed. This data is available real time all the time. And so if your team is going through a certain period of stress or you have a big project ongoing or something's happening, this is going to give you a very good indicator because there's benchmarking that can be done and you're going to have a really good understanding of, oh my goodness, we're dipping. Again, your baseline. I've got a baseline. I'm dipping below. It's always understanding the why. And this data allows you to really drill in and have those conversations with your leadership or need be your team members. And you'll see how that's going to evolve as I'm going to roll you through this.
Sounds great.
Okay, so the next category we're going to look at is our collaboration time. So this is giving us a breakdown of our scheduled time in meetings per day per person. And you can see both external and internal. And you can also see the meeting sizes, how many one-on-ones, how many mid-team, 3 to 5, and then 6 and above. And also, what was my time in calls per day per person? And you can see we've got Zoom, Slack, and Teams. So the major applications we're tracking here. Again, this gives you a very good lever, and you're going to see as we drill down into this, how this can become even more meaningful. But anything you want to punch out here, Marco?
No, I love this because, the old adage of like, people in a bunch of people in a meeting room and everybody laughing about how much is this meeting costing us. But also when you think from the standpoint of with work from home and more Zoom calls taking place, a lot of the times like people are being invited to meetings all the time. And, what's the impact of that? And like I said before, it's not so much that meetings are all bad. But for instance, when we know that for an employee as an example, if they've been in meetings for 5 days straight for 6 or 7 hours a day, and people are looking for them to be productive, that's when they actually have the ability to use a platform like Produce 8 to have a conversation with their manager to say, this is what's impacting my workday, right?
Yeah.
What changes can we do or what can we do to fix this because I can't necessarily get my work done. So I love the power of what Produce 8 not only helps with organization standpoint to give them information, but also at the employee level to give them the ability to go in and have conversations with their leadership, with their manager to say, these are the things that are impacting me today. And that leads to improved sentiment. It leads to much happier people. And when you talk about today of trying to keep top talent retention and keeping people around in a business, tools like this are going to have a major impact of keeping those people around because they feel like you're investing in them.
Absolutely. So now let's go down and let's look at our app usage category, which is always a hot topic for anybody in the IT world, right? So we can see here we've got our top 5 apps by time spent per day. And you get an indicator of what those apps are, the amount of time, the change that happened, and how many unique users are using that. And then we also have your top 5 apps by interactions per day. So if somebody is really in a certain app and they're creating a lot of interactions, that's going to drive that number up. And so you've got your interactions, the change, and the number of unique users. And then you also get a nice little description here that breaks that down for you. And then what you can actually do, which is very unique by company, is that you can decide, you can take a look at your stack of applications that you're using, and you can group them into categories. So you can say, my sales team should be using these certain apps, and therefore I'm going to categorize that. My design team, my development team, however your org chart is broken down, you can actually categorize your apps and you can get detailed usage on that. So it's an incredibly powerful tool. And, we're not going in this today, but this goes even beyond. Like this extends, we can start looking at absolutely everything we're using here, which you can just imagine where the conversations can go on that. And to be straight up with everybody, it's something that we went through at Produce 8. So we, as a leadership team, had a list and we said, this is what we use. And I said, okay, team. And then when we started using the product and actually pulling in what we're actually using, there's always a discrepancy there. It doesn't mean it's bad, but it means let's have the conversation on the why. What tools do the teams need to use to be efficient?
Yeah, I think I love that aspect of this piece of what we can report on, but also what the platform will bring to you because I think that's so critical. And I mentioned it a little bit before that MSPs, they'll have an inventory of what all the pieces of software that are running on the network, but they can't really tell like who's using those softwares, right? And so can you imagine an MSP going into a client's environment? Like we can actually add a component to this where it actually shows how much money we're actually spending on those software, or like you said, what are the users and are they actually being utilized? And we give them a complete audit report in terms of all the pieces of applications that are running on the network. And then it helps businesses make decisions. And that's what we're talking about around Produce 8 is to give you data so that you can make the right decisions within your business, which is, I find really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's go down here. This is an absolutely phenomenal feature as well called the department overview. Now, the way this works, so you've got the org level that we just reviewed. So we've got the high level view, but for any team size that is greater than 5 team members, you can create to your org chart a departmental view. So we've got 2 here. We've got our engineering team and we've got our sales team. And so we've divided our team into 2 groups of users. And then we get to break that data down. So we can see the working hours for those 2 groups, the sentiment, the focus. So how focused are they able to be, their intensity, how much time are they in internal meetings versus external meetings, and what's their time in calls. And again, there's many ways that we can go with this data. But Marco, you as CRO know that you like to look at this and see, you know, how many external meetings are going on, because that's a really good indicator for sales, versus our engineering team is likely going to be in less external meetings. And we would expect them to be, if anything, in more internal meetings. And so it just really allows those deep level conversations, again, around the leadership table, to say, okay, here's the baselines now for our teams. Why are we off the baseline? It's always understanding the why. The differences may be okay as long as you've got a really good indicator of the why and understanding your baselines. And again, I would go back to that amazing, beautiful slide. I think I'm going to print it as well with the big plane, and you have no data, you're flying blind. You're no longer flying blind when you're leveraging this, because now you've got the intelligence to take your business to the next level. And again, as that MSP guiding your customers, you look like a rock star.
I love that. I love the analogy. And I love the information and the data. Do we have the ability to go into the platform itself?
Absolutely, Marco. So let me just come out and we'll go in here. The one thing I do want to make sure we just take a quick second to highlight, Marco, because you were highlighting it, is the partner center. So you can see right here, as a partner, you would literally click in the partner center. You would click to your partner settings. You would upload your icon, your logo. So you would just upload that. It's so easy. You can put in your tagline, press the button, and away you go. Your white labeling is done and you're off to the races.
Very neat. And we've made it a multi-tenancy for MSPs, so they have the ability to see all of their customers in the platform and on the dashboards, and you can manage all of your accounts. And you can actually even push Produce out through their existing RMM into the client's environment. And one of the things I like about this is, we were saying there's not a lot of people that need to be involved. I don't have to hire a new team. I don't have to develop a whole entire new strategy. As an MSP goes out and delivers digital work analytics, they get all the goodness of this platform, but they roll it out to their customers. And once they roll it out, Janice, there's nothing that they need to do. They don't have to manage this instance. They don't have to make changes to it. It basically starts working on its own, and within 24 hours of being inside the client's environment, it starts reporting on information and all the applications that are going on in the network, and providing not only the company, but also the users critical information in terms of what's going on in their workday.
Oh, 1,000%. It is just an amazing product. And so here, what I'm showing everybody is an actual live view of my week this week. So, we're sitting at Thursday. I've worked digital hours of 33. Time in apps has been just under 30 hours. You can see my time in calls there, just under 6, and my time in meetings. My focus score has been really good this week. We've been in the zone. So
There you go.
I'm sitting at an 87 with a digital intensity of 90. So it really lets me know my dials, and I'm in control here. Now, would you like me to give a little value add, Marco, on the extension of the product?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so as you learn about the product and you go deeper within the product, you can actually start to understand your work habits, and you can take what we call challenges, which is really a healthy way to change your work behaviors. So if you notice an issue, you can address it. And it's been proven in theory that in order to change our habits, we need to record them. We got to write them down, and we got to tick them off on a daily basis that we're accomplishing them. One of the challenges that we're doing together as a team here at Produce 8, because we really encourage our team, not only are we building this incredible platform, but we're leveraging the power of the technology. And we have, this is a new release that just came out on public challenges. And so we are actively right now working with our team for them to put in their daily sentiment score, because we want to know how they're feeling. And we talk about that very openly. And we get them to fill that out, and we'll coach them. And it's actually proven that to change somebody's habit, it can take up to 66 days. So this is something that you have to be very patient with. You can fall off the horse, but we encourage everybody to get back on, and we can change those habits and have productive, healthy days together. So I do have goals set. So I set goals for my working hours, and I set myself a personal goal for my focus time. And then right down below here, I get a very good indication of, you saw the org level of the applications that were being used, but this is now showing me, what is Janice working on a day-to-day basis? What tools is she in? And so you can see from my week where I've been focused, and you can also see the tools that I'm using. And so this really puts me in charge of my driver's seat to say, how am I doing? How am I feeling? And let's go about this day. And the power of this product comes when you actually dive in and you're using it. And it just becomes addictive. And for me, it's now an absolute norm.
That's very neat. I think it's so critical when you look at this. If an MSP is out there saying, how does this fit into my client's environment and the value? The value is that at the C-suite within that organization, there's the critical information reporting that we talked about in the executive summary report. But then as a user, I can choose to use this platform or not. The business is still going to be able to capture the data, but I think it becomes contagious, right, Janice, that people will just want to start playing around with the technology and understand how they can make improvements, because I think it's just human nature that everybody wants to be better, right? But also sometimes you think you're doing a great job, but then you don't realize, oh my God, maybe I'm logging into Teams or Slack 250 times a day. Well, what happens if I bring that down to 125 times a day? What does that do to me? And so those challenges that you talked about are goal setting. You can
Yeah.
actually measure what the impact of making that in your day is. And so those are the things that we're talking about. And maybe if I use that example again, that I bring my Teams usage down by 50%, maybe my sentiment score goes up, maybe my focus time goes up. And at the end of the day, I feel much better. I feel accomplished. And that's really at the end of the day what businesses are gonna look for. But I really want to reiterate here, the MSP in terms of doesn't have to be work analytic experts, right?
No,
Like
no.
it's just kind of like deploy it, leave it there, and let the customer use it, right, Janice?
Absolutely. This is the easiest product to use. I mean, it is so intuitive. I mean, our product team, they're absolute rock stars. So the way that they've built this, it's so insightful. When you start doing your challenges and you do your check off, they've got amazing characters in there. It's so beautifully laid out. It's fun to use, and it's just so easy. So again, you are just enabling your customers to be so successful and empowered. And you know what? They're going to keep pointing back to you to be like, you know what? Joe brought this forward to us. Can you believe the value that he provided us? It's off the charts, Marco. I'm just so passionate about this product.
Well, Janice, I think what we can do is why don't we get into pricing, and we can
Sounds
show
good.
everybody, because I'm sure everybody's probably wondering like how much is this thing going to cost us and all that kind of stuff. And I can tell you that it's going to be very cost effective. And so just give me 1 second here. Um, it's not coming up. 1 sec. There we go.
Okay, and
Can
I'm
you see my
seeing the
screen,
price.
Janice?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. So this is the new essential licensing model that we just launched, which I'm so excited about. And so you've heard me a couple of times. I've been trying to kind of, without getting pricing involved, and saying it's a few cents a day, and it literally is. And so our new partner program and on this essential strategy, everything that we showed you today on the product, you receive the dashboard, all the technology, and our licensing model will work like this. It starts at 80 cents a license, and it goes all the way down to 20 cents a license. And so if an MSP has 1,500 endpoints, and an endpoint is an employee, a user, then for instance, you would be paying, 30 cents a license and it works out to a penny a day. And why did we price it out like this? We priced it out like this because we want to disrupt the MSP space. We want MSPs all delivering digital work analytics to their customers and to do it in a way that it's going to be very hard for them to say no. Because Janice, like, how is somebody going to say no to a penny a day, right? Who's going to say no? And so the idea here is that an MSP can actually go out, roll this into their existing managed services contract, right? So if you think of an MSP charging anywhere between $100 and $150 a user for fixed fee managed services, and they tie something in for 30 cents or 40 cents per user to differentiate themselves as a value add, to differentiate themselves and say, hey, listen, this is the new value that I'm bringing to you, and it's included in my managed services contract. You have the ability to do that at the price point that we're going to market with. But if an MSP says, listen, you know what, we want to generate new recurring revenue, which I highly recommend, a strategy that you can actually do is go in, deploy this in your client's environments, and 3 months later, go in and talk to them and show them the value of the report, but how much they're liking the solution. And then what we recommend is you can go out to market and charge $2.50 to $4 a user for this service, or charge them basically a monthly fee for, per location or per site or whatever the case may be. So we can help the MSPs as part of our onboarding program. We can help you generate what those programs look like, your go-to-market strategy. It's so easy. And this is where we actually feel so excited about what we bring to the table. And like I said, there's great recurring revenue strategies that you can bring here with phenomenal margins. How does that sound, Janice?
That's amazing. Love it.
So let me share some go-to-market strategies that people can use, and I touched base on them really quickly. You can white label our platform, and you go in and you deploy it in your client's environment, right? Because of the low barrier to entry, you can include it in your managed services offering, or as I mentioned, you can actually charge your customer for your solution. And I highly believe that MSPs have the ability to go in and charge them for this, because the value in it is, there's so much value in it for the end user customer. So there's different ways that you can actually go out and do this. We also include like, as you come on board as part of our onboarding process, we have what's called our Blueprint for Success program, where we actually give the MSPs a dedicated customer success team that will work hand in hand with you on developing your go-to-market strategies. And so in there, you have your brochures, you have a whole entire partner resource center, we have presentations, everything that you need to learn about digital work analytics. And then what we recommend is that, like, once you get involved with us, is that you do a press release to your customers. Send them a press release that you've got into digital work analytics, and this is something new that you've brought into the business. And depending on your strategy that you're going to have, include it. Tell everybody they're going to have it for free, maybe for the first 2 or 3 months, so they can see the value. There's different ways that you can go to market. We give you website content, so you can update your website and you show your not only competition, but people that are looking for new MSPs about this new solution that you actually have in your business that makes you look a little bit different than the other MSPs in the marketplace. And then use this report that we've showed you today as a way to go in and articulate it to their customers. Because I promise you, if you go to your customers and show them the value of the report and ask them the simple question, would you like this type of information? I can't imagine that a lot of businesses would say no, right, Janice?
I can't imagine. It's go time, everybody.
For sure. And so we really feel that it's so easy. I've talked about it a lot throughout the session today. When you get on board with our product, to push it out and deploy to your clients is extremely easy. And so, we go out, we push it out, we give them the report, and then over time, there's another licensing model, Janice, that we'll talk about on our next webinar, which is really our professional licensing and what does the pro license bring to it. It's another echelon of licensing, data retention, and challenges. But with the Essential platform, you get everything that we talked to you about today, which is really exciting. And so if anybody wants a copy of that executive summary report, send us an email and we'll send it to you for free. And then you can use that report. If you want to know if your customers are interested in something like this, go bring them that report, show them the value of what Produce 8 is, And I think you'd be very intrigued by what your customers will say because they're having these conversations today. They're doing the research on what's going on with technology, how they can increase employee productivity, how we can basically help employee promoter scores, and it's all encompassing in the Produce 8 platform. So I'll just go back here, Janice. So you and I, so you're my new co-host on these podcasts as we're moving forward, which I'm really excited about.
Me too.
And you actually just finished doing a webinar with Joe Connor, who's actually one of our partners, who's
Yeah.
a future of work consultant. How did that go today?
That was phenomenal. I mean, we did such a great job together, just explaining the value proposition and how Joe and team are really going forth to leverage the technology within our product and wrap around the services. So they're on a mission for a 4-day work week. So they've actually branded the product called Focus 4. And it's not even so much that it needs to become a 4-day work week, but less about let's take away the time working on weekends. Let's cut down the time working on evenings.
Sure.
Let's do it in a really healthy, productive way. So we had a very large crowd on there, really good enthusiasm from the audience. This is happening. And I mean, we've even heard from MSPs that have been researching and they find us and they say, oh my God, like I've been looking for this and here you are. This is coming. So, I mean, we need to deliver to the end users, our amazing customers, and they need this type of data in order to run their organization. So it's just been an outstanding day with these back-to-back sessions. And Marco, I couldn't be more thrilled to be your co-host going forth.
Well, I'm glad that the webinar that you guys had with Joe today was very well attended, and I sat on it myself today, and the information was great. So I think a lot of people are going to enjoy what the conversation that we'll have with Joe on the 20th. We'll be sending out information and the sign up page and everything. Aaron in marketing will be pushing that out, so we're excited about that. And Janice, I think I had a lot of fun today. Do you have any comments or parting words before we sign off?
No, just that this was an amazing session. This product is an absolute game changer for everybody. And it's go time, everyone. So let's go have some fun with this. This is our year, 2025, and we're lit up and ready to roll.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I'm excited about it. I know that since we launched this new model, Janice, our sales team has actually been extremely busy. They've been signing up a lot of deals, which is really, really exciting over the last couple of weeks. And we look forward to having many, many thousands of MSPs that are going to be on our platform in the very near future. So thank you very much for your time today. Aaron,